Good evening and welcome to the Town of Avon Advisory Plan Commission meeting. If you are interested in having a copy of the agenda, they are available on the tables to the right of the audience. We will be conducting business as outlined on the agenda. From time to time, the board may deviate from the agenda. As president of this body, I will inform those in attendance of any deviations. This meeting is being recorded for the public record. Because of this, we request that personal conversations are kept to a minimum and that all cell phones are set to vibrate. Any phone calls shall be taken outside of the chambers. If you are interested in commenting during the public hearing portion of the Commission's deliberations, please sign up on the sheets located on the tables to the right of the audience. When your name is called, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please address your comments to the board and not to the staff or to the petitioner. Your comments should relate directly to the case at hand. During the conduct of the public hearing portion of the Commission's deliberations, the petitioner will have 10 minutes to present their case to the Commission. Remonstrators will have 10 minutes to present objections to the Commission. Persons in support of the petition, other than the petitioner, will have 10 minutes to present support for the petition. And finally, the petitioner will close the public hearing portion of the presentation with a 5-minute rebuttal period. Once the public hearing is closed, no additional testimony will be heard unless it is solicited by members of the Commission during the question and answer phase of the Commission's deliberations. Subdivision plat and development plan petitions are ministerial requests, meaning that if the proposal meets the requirements set forth in the town's development ordinances, the Plan Commission must approve the request. In the interest of transparency, state law requires that the Plan Commission hold a public hearing, even if the development proposal must be approved. Responses to public comments and questions may be given once the public hearing portion is closed. We understand there may be several persons who wish to speak this evening. In order to keep the meeting running in a timely fashion, we would request that you not repeat previous comments. Thank you for your assistance in facilitating a respectful, fair, and timely meeting. Again, welcome to our meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a roll call.
Greg Zuzan.
Present.
Paul Guckenberger.
Here.
Catherine Ransberg.
Here.
Dave Kaufman.
Here.
Bill Reed.
Here.
Andrew Rockerbrand.
Here.
Jennifer Spencer. Jennifer Spencer is absent.
We do have a quorum, and now we move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from May 26th. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the meeting minutes? And are there any corrections, questions, clarifications? If not, then I will take a motion for approval.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 26, 2026 as presented.
Second.
Having heard a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, none are opposed. The meeting minutes are approved. We're now moving on to the public comments section. This is the point in the meeting at which anybody present can come forward and speak about anything that is not already on tonight's agenda. It can have to do with anything doing with the town, as long as it's not already on tonight's agenda. So if you would like to come forward and talk about how lovely our parks are or anything like that, now's the time to do so. Has anybody signed up to speak, or would anybody like to come forward and speak? If not, then I now declare the public comment section of our meeting closed. Have there been any requests for continuances or agenda modifications?
We believe there is an individual here to request a continuance on DPR 2609.
Okay, well, let's have that person go ahead and come forward.
Hello,
Could you state your name and address, please?
Michael Sandy, 10400 East US 36, Suite 800, Avon 6123.
Thank you. You have a request for continuance?
I do. My name is Mike Sandy. I'm the general manager at Regal Cinemas, which is adjacent to the property. And we just got notice, I think it was last week, that this hearing was going to be happening. I came down on Thursday to get some of the information and discovered that I believe our parking lot is shared now. And we were unaware of that for 30 years. And we just found out today with some paperwork that I picked up today from the planner's office that something was done, in 1996. Our landlord was not aware of it, and the landlord before him was not aware of it either. So we just wanted some time to be able to have our lawyers review it.
Now, you're with Nirvana Sports?
No, I'm with Regal Cinemas. I'm part of the shared property.
So, Mr. Taylor, we have a request for continuance coming from a non-party.
Yeah, it's your discretion.
It's our discretion. Well, I guess I would ask Nirvana Sports if they have any objection to continuing this.
We have objection because.
If you could come forward.
And state your name and address for the record, please.
Pratik Parikh, 6151 Palomar Circle, Indianapolis, Indiana. We have objection because we bought the property knowing the declaration of easement. So if somebody doesn't know what they have in their law, in their books, that's not our problem.
Okay. I think, and I obviously want input from everybody here, it seems to me the best thing to do would be go forward. You can address your concerns during the objection period, and then once we've heard everything, then we can consider whether or not this might be appropriate for continuing. What do you all think?
Yeah, I would agree with your recommendation. I don't know if your request is enough to continue based on not even a presentation yet, but you will get your voice heard during the discussion about this
Yes,
property. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Does anybody object to that?
I agree.
Okay, so at the president's discretion, we're choosing to deny the motion to continue, or rather, I guess, delay it until after the hearing has been heard, and then reconsider that, I think would that be the best thing to do, Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Okay. Always listen to your lawyer. Okay, thank you. We do not have any old business. Moving on to new business, which is MAP 2604.
Thank you, President Ransberg, members of the commission. What we have before you tonight is a preliminary plat for what will be known as, or what would be known as Fairwood Section 5. This is a an unusual plat that to come before you that's different than most plats that we see. Let me go back to this one. So this is on the southern part of town. This road right here is Bradford Road. This is Dan Jones or 800. And then this is the Fairwood subdivision to the south of the white that I've highlighted. Fairwood was originally, there was an original rezoning request to a PUD, which was denied. And then Fairwood was, came in under the existing R1A zoning, which doesn't exist anymore. It's just an R1 to plat 199 lots. There are two connections to Dan Jones over here to the east of Fairwood subdivision. There was an attempt to connect to Stubb Street in Plainfield. However, that connection was blocked or prohibited by the town of Plainfield. The subdivision itself currently has 2 access points onto Dan Jones or 800. This request would plat an additional 9 lots for this remainder piece that's still owned by D.R. Horton for development of 9 more lots to be known as Fairwood Section 5. This is a preliminary plat because Section 5 of what we're calling Section 5 was not included in the preliminary plat of Sections 1 through 4. The preliminary plat for 1 through 4 came in 2018, and then the last Section 4 was platted in 21. There are still a few vacant, undeveloped lots within the subdivision. So the request is to approve 9 additional lots in a unique format, which I'll get into in a minute, and then a waiver of the design standards of the UDO to allow more than 200 lots on the existing 2 access points onto Dan Jones. The current site is undeveloped, and it has a lot of the acreage within existing floodplains. And I've turned on the floodplains on this map that you see here, which I did not include in your staff report, but just wanted you to be able to see what is floodplain along the eastern side of the property. Again, this is location here. Dan Jones, Bradford, or 200 South. This is the high school property here. The high school is developing further south here. This is undeveloped section of, I can't think of the name of that subdivision. This one. Settlement over here, Settlement West. And then this piece in here is a town-owned piece of property that we're eyeing up for future park development. This is the thoroughfare plan. So I've outlined in black the northern part of this, or where the adjacent to the north is. So the Fairwood development is in here. And then the northern end lines up with that dotted line. You can see where the thoroughfare plan proposes Bradford Road or 200 South to extend along the north end of this proposed subdivision. So again, this would be Section 5, which would be added on to the 4 sections in existing Fairwood subdivision. This is an atypical lot design, and it calls, or the type of lots proposed are called MU lots, or MEW lots. And what that proposes is lots front on a common area, then have an alley-type access in the back, instead of having a standard traditional front-load garage. They would have side-load garages accessing a private alley that the town would not maintain, and then they would front on a common area to the north, and then north of that would be extended in future Bradford Road. Oakmont Drive is this north-south road that's existing, and it currently stubs right here. So it would be extended 2 lots to the north. These 2 lots would be traditional lots with front-load garages, and then 7 new lots on this extended Bradford Road in the future. Most lots that we talk about require public street frontage, public street access, but the ordinance does recognize new lots and does provide for them. So it is a legal type of development to have it front on a common area. Again, the alley would be private, maintained by the homeowners. This is the overall plat, and you'll see over to the east, there are 2 blocks here, Block A and Block B. These are not to be common area for the subdivision, but rather transferred to the town. And the purpose of that is to, number one, allow us to control this floodplain area so we can maintain it properly, make sure it drains properly, and then have it for future greenway access along the trails. The petitioner is proposing a trail that would connect this development and then also the high school development with a trail down to connect to this trail along Dan Jones. So those are two additional benefits we're gaining with this subdivision. Additionally, this will eventually be a third entrance when Bradford Road is extended through here. So it would be essentially a temporary exceedance of that 200 lot threshold. It's just some shots of the site, the existing stub street of Oakmont Drive looking towards the high school property. These are the backs of the homes along the northern end of Fairwood Section 4. And then this is kind of where the private alley would go in. This is looking west towards more of the high school property from the stub, and just looking across over at the high school stadium. Or no, that's again looking to the east, sorry. Again, blocks A and B would be transferred to the town. It's approximately 5.93 acres that the town would acquire. We do think it's a public benefit because it would allow for long-term management of the natural drainage and floodplain in that area. Having access to it and control of it makes it more beneficial because the town can ensure that the floodplain is maintained properly, and then we can beautify it more with adding future park or greenway development to it. Sidewalks would be provided along future Bradford Road, along Oakmont Drive, and then the trail extension coming down through that would connect down to Dan Jones. Again, this would connect to the overall trail system we have throughout the southern part of Avon, and then again, this area over here, this piece of land, the town owns already, eyeing up for park development. So the trail would essentially come down along the white line here, and you'd be able to immediately connect to a future park development. So for the reasons that this would be a temporary situation, that the town is acquiring a large benefit of being able to control the property to the east, and then the public park and public connection of the greenway area, we believe that the good outweighs the negative potential of this, of having a few more lots on 2 access points. There would only be one phase for this. The sidewalks and path are provided. They're required to have 5% open space. They're providing 26.4% open space, and that's without blocks A and B. This is a landscape plan that is proposed, so it would buffer not only along Bradford Road, but along the southern side adjacent to the existing homes in Fairwood Section 4. Emergency access, the fire department has reviewed the plans for the private alleyway and is satisfied with the design that's been proposed. And because it would only temporarily exceed the threshold by 9 lots, staff would find the waivers acceptable. Findings of fact I've outlined here for you is the petitioner's response and under the blue categories of how they feel that the findings have been met, and staff concurs with the findings that have been presented by the petitioner. And finally, staff recommends approval of the waiver and then of the plat with the 6 conditions that are listed in your staff report and also shown here on the screen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Just to confirm what I'm hearing, the waiver would only be temporary in terms of once that entrance into Bradford Road is in place, it won't be in violation of any ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, so it's just to allow for these to be built until that entrance can be built. Okay.
Have we been given any indication as to how long this temporary issue would be in terms of a timeline?
We don't have a timeline in place for Bradford Road. We still have to do engineering of there's the creek, the tributary creek over, or the tributary to Clark's Creek. The bridge has yet to be engineered, and there's still some ongoing conversations with the school about where their entrances need to be. That's why we don't want the road constructed at this point, because we have to do a lot more engineering. That bridge may change depending on how it's going to cross the creek, the best point to cross the creek, as well as the roundabout that it will connect to. So that's one of the reasons why it's more of a holding pattern right now, and we didn't want anything except for the right-of-way that they're going to be dedicating for it.
Thank you.
Can you go back to one of your original slides? That one there. And I want to just take it as that yellow line is Bradford Road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, so
Yeah.
to get through there, you have to go through a tennis court that the school owns, right?
Yeah, so it's been designed, this was originally going to be straight across, but the plans for the school show this kind of curving down and then back up to get back up.
Well, just to give everybody a little history, the town and the school have talked at one time before the property to the west, which is the Grundy property. The school was looking to buy it and subsequently worked out an opportunity with Pulte Homes. So the school does own the Grundy property. But when we were going to run that road through there, they wanted to run it through that subdivision. And one of the concerns was traffic and safety. And kids coming out of that high school parking lot, cutting through there, or people, finding out that their Bradford goes west, will cut through that parking lot. So that was an issue. I don't know where that stands now because they do own it now. And I know at one time they were going to build I thought some tennis courts over there, which subsequently are there in that white box now. So I don't think there's a need anymore, but I'm not speaking for the school. So there was conversations, and then you can see on Dan Jones going north where the road cut comes out that loops around, that egress ingress from the school property was going to be closed. It was always supposed to be closed, but it's never been closed. And so then use Bradford Road when Bradford Road is created. So there's been discussions, there probably hasn't been discussions since the school acquired the Grundy property, but we've talked about it in the past. So it's kind of a history update if that helps.
So is that still a reasonable assumption that there will be a Bradford Road extension?
I believe so, yes. When, I'm not sure.
So are we talking months, years,
Years.
5 years, 10 years?
I wasn't given a number by the DPW director. I think it's going to depend on funding, but it is still the plan. And it's also the plan for this road, for the school to come down here and connect rather than go out to.
I mean, I would say, I don't want to say sooner than later, but I don't know what later is. And like I said, some of the dynamics have changed since they've acquired that property. But I think the school would still have an interest in putting that road through. Now, part of the conversation is, the town have to acquire right of way. Would the school donate the right of way? would the school have to put money into the project, which they didn't want to do, and the town doesn't want to fund it all. So those are some conversations that still need to be had, but I think it probably needs to be resurrected now, and I think this would be a good time to do that if we're going to look at this.
So Bradford Road will not be extended from Dan Jones as part of this, or to only be extended to where there would be a third entrance?
It will not be extended as part of this. The right-of-way will be dedicated for the town to do the project in the future. And we don't want the road constructed at this point because there's a lot more engineering that would have to be done before we know where the road's exactly going to end
So,
up.
but we're not talking about several months. We might be talking about several years.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so the waiver would be in place
for a while.
for a while. Okay, thank you.
So is there, if we would approve the waiver and then the primary plat, is there any change that could occur? So let's say things happen, if we're talking years, things could happen. And now plans change. So we would be approving the plat for what is presented today. There couldn't be a deviation to that?
A deviation of the lots and the design and the layout?
Yeah,
Correct. That would
they'd have to come back.
stay in place for the final.
So they'd have to come back for any change in the
Correct.
future. Okay, all right.
Any further questions for staff? Questions, comments? Okay, petitioner can come forward.
Good evening, Steve Brehub, Banning Engineering, 853 Columbia Road, Plainfield, Indiana, 46168. This is an odd piece of property. It's a remnant piece of property. And we have worked with the staff and with Public Works Director quite a bit to come up with this configuration so that D.R. Horton can finish out this area, and that right-of-way for Bradford Road can be dedicated, and property along the creek can be donated to the town. So we've tried to come up with as much benefit for all parties involved as we could. The thing that is so peculiar about this to me, and in my mind, the need for the waiver, is the fact that a road that was in existence and stubbed to the property when Fairwood was developed was decided not to make a connection. Had that connection been made, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and the future extension of Bradford Road would be a fourth connection to the development. So it's probably not a ideal situation. We always talk about connecting road stubs when roads are stubbed to properties, but that's how this one played out. I don't have much more to add, and I would be happy to answer questions that you have. I would add, though, that Greg's discussion about the history of this property and the Grundy property, D.R. Horton was involved in the Grundy property at that time, and what Greg had indicated about the road extending through, the future closure of the school's entry out to Dan Jones and rerouting it down to Bradford. All of that is correct, and that's what I recall as well. Thank you.
Is there a history lesson on why that stub road on the south end was, I mean, that's how it was approved, but the road was going to connect into Plainfield, and Plainfield vacated the property, didn't they? Or what did they do?
I think so, to keep the road from being connected, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think it was in part because of several people that lived in that subdivision.
My understanding is they vacated the road and they deeded it to the landowners.
Yeah.
that were on each side of it, thus they couldn't do the connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody present who would like to remonstrate against this proposal? Is there anybody signed up who would like to speak in support of this proposal? Then I'm assuming we do not, I'm assuming we do not need a rebuttal. So, discussion. I do have a question for the petitioner, actually. What is the purpose of using the Mu design as opposed to what has been used elsewhere in the division and in accordance
I
to?
think ultimately, when Bradford Road is extended through, that the best outcome for the area would be homes fronting on Bradford, but not having driveways on Bradford, because Bradford is going to be a collector street. I think it's a better streetscape having those homes front as opposed to their backyards backing up to Bradford. So that was really one of the reasons that we went with this design. And it's, again, we're trying to design around something that's not there yet, but it's going to be there in the future.
Okay.
I could add to that, it was actually a planning staff request that they front the homes to face Bradford to make it better looking when Bradford does go.
Right, right. Thank you.
I've got a couple questions for you, Steve.
Sure.
These 7 lots, are those single-family homes? Are those townhomes or what?
They're single-family homes. They're just like the homes that are in the other sections in Fairwood, with the exception of they'll all be side-load garages.
So are we going to be covered under the anti-monotony rule then?
That's standard in the ordinance and would be,
Because everyone's going to see those houses, and I don't want to see, in this case, it'll be the fronts of them versus the back, but they're all the same.
would be covered by the UDO's
Yeah.
Okay.
monotony.
The alley is a private road that the town does not take care of. How do we convey that message to those homeowners so they remember that when there's snow to be plowed and they've got to find their own contractor to plow it?
I would assume through the covenants and restrictions, but I would defer to Mark Bridwell if he has anything to add. And through the homeowners association, and those lots will have a separate homeowners association.
So is there going to be parking in that alley then?
No. And the driveways, because of the depth of the lots and the way the homes are, the driveways are long enough. I think you could park a couple school buses in each driveway.
So then at the east end of that, is that, I'll call it a hammerhead turnaround?
Correct.
Because it's not a roundabout.
No, it's a hammerhead, and we worked with the fire department on
Fire
that
department's
design.
okay with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I got a question. If you look at the basic lot design, essentially those houses that are supposed to front Bradford Road are blocked by trees though, right? There's planned to be trees planted and all that kind of.
I wouldn't say blocked, but there are trees along the front. And it's actually a UDO requirement to have a streetscape along the front.
Okay. Okay. And on this drawing, there's 2 lines. There's the Avon School Corporation line and the southern part of Bradford Road associated with this. Is that already an easement from Avon, or is that what the negotiation has to be? Is there already a road easement there with Avon?
I don't think so. I wouldn't think there is.
School
It's a
property?
strip of property.
There is a strip of property there that's separated from the rest of their property, but it's still owned by the school.
Okay.
But the intention is, and they are aware, the intention is that the strip would be the other half of the road.
And how close is that line to those ball fields? It looks like it's right on top of the ball field.
It's quite a ways from the ball fields. If you go to the,
You can see the dugout there.
First one. There you go.
I can't zoom into that, but the
Okay.
yellow line is the northern half of their small strip parcel.
The yellow line's the northern half of the road.
The northern,
That's the start of the Avon property, right?
the town of Avon is what are the dedicated part of the road that the town would now control would be in the white area. And between the white area and the yellow area is a separate parcel that the school owns, but it is separated for the purpose of this.
Okay, so that's the, okay.
So the yellow line would be as far north as it would go.
So the way I see this property, essentially, this is a permanent waiver. There's no plans, there's no property acquired, there's no engineering for the road or for the bridge, and putting in a bridge is not gonna be cheap for 7 houses. So I think the commission should be aware that it's a permanent easement, or should portray it as permanent, even though there's potential in any number of years that it's gonna be.
Right, and I would agree with you. I think I'd portray it differently, that the Bradford Road extension was and is something that has been planned and expected, and it's going to service the entire community more than just those 7 houses or this property.
that's
So,
true.
but I agree with you that it's a waiver to allow the construction of those houses now. Because without the waiver, they're going to have to come back and do some redesign for the plat there. So I think the town staff's done a good job of explaining the benefits of the waiver and what the town will benefit and planning to the Bradford extension. Because I'm where you were heading, Andrew, is like safety is like, okay, is it going to be safe? Well, I look at the fire department, if they agree to that, and we've questioned staff a lot in a lot of cases, like, okay, but is this really safe? And it's always come back to fires said safe. And so I go with that the fire department says it's good. It's going to be good. And then it's 9 properties and maybe years before that extension's done, but it's still going to be serviced.
If I could respond to that real quick, and I get what you're saying, and we do have to look at it as a permanent waiver in case something happens and it doesn't happen, the road doesn't get extended, but we are talking about the difference between 2 entrances and 3 entrances when we normally talk about 1 entrance to 2, and the 1 entrance is the safety problem. We are already at 2. The 3rd is more for ease of flow of traffic. It's not as much of a safety concern. So that's kind of where staff was leaned towards the benefits outweighed.
And I also agree that the Bradford Road extension is not just, it's more concrete than abstract. It's something that the town has been talking about for quite some time, and it is going to happen. So I don't think it's just like, well, we've got this property here and someday somebody might buy it and do something. This is, I think, a little more concrete than that.
I think the point, and I agree with Andrew, is like, if we approve the waiver, we're doing the approval for the 7 lots or 9 lots, whatever, that are presented. Because of, it's going to be years.
For now, yeah. But once Bradford is extended,
Well, and
it's going to be a benefit to everybody.
And that's the thing, we can't manage time, and time sometimes isn't friendly.
This is true. That's why I can't.
However, again, I think staff's done a good job. I mean, you look at the criterion, they address the public safety issue there, the unique conditions, the benefits that come with this to the town beyond just addressing the criterion that will help with parks and with the deeding the right of way. So I think, again, good job with staff that agree with what they've identified and with their positions on the criterion for the waiver.
So I guess I have one more question for the petitioner. Why was section 5 not included in the original plans?
I couldn't begin to tell you. I honestly don't know.
Because this, if this property is already owned when the other sections were built, it seems like this is sort of an end around the ordinance. 199 lots, just enough I don't need a third entrance. Oh, wait a minute, we have this extra property. We want to add 9 more lots. It seems a little bit disingenuous that this is.
I don't think there was any
secondary.
thought of that.
Then why wasn't this developed initially?
I don't think there was any thought of let's sneak 9 more lots in. This was originally proposed as a PUD, and I think it was by Paul Rio, and then it went straight zoning. I honestly don't think it was a backdoor way to do this.
Okay.
Right, it was developed by right. It was already R1A, they just developed it. And they had a redevelopment plan, a development plan that had to be approved, but not zoning. So there were no deals. It was the most controversial subdivision I can ever remember here. It took about 7 months, and the people in Plainfield didn't want it there, and really fought hard on the PUD, and eventually it was denied. So then it just went straight zoning, and they didn't need to ask anyone's permission to do that. It was just developed. So the context is important, I think.
Well, and that's why I'm assuming 199 was the limit. They didn't need a variance for that. That's.
Yeah, I'm sure that, well, I don't know, but I mean, they had 2 access points, and that may have gone into their decision making. I don't know. I just know that they didn't have to ask anybody or bring us their proposal because they could develop it by right.
Okay.
Which is not what they wanted to do. They wanted to do a PUD, and the town said no. After 7 meetings, I think, which had to be moved to somewhere else because the crowds were so large.
So, I
It was
mean,
quite a thing.
until this, the town didn't have the opportunity to get the land to do the Bradford extension. So this provides the town something that they didn't
Correct.
have before.
But we needed somebody to offer to dedicate right of way, yes.
Okay.
And then there were issues, as Greg said, rightly so, there were a lot of issues to work out with the school's future plans and how the Bradford was going to work out with all that. That was also a big issue because the school wanted to expand to the south and they also wanted a road, so.
Well,
Thank you, that's
I
fine.
like the fact that there are plans to connect it to the existing trail system as part of that, which is a benefit to the town. Any more questions for the petitioner? Discussion? If we're ready, we can entertain a motion. I'm sorry, you're correct. We need to do the motion for the waiver first.
I'll make a motion. I move that we approve MAPP 2604 Fairwood, Section 5, Waiver A, request to waive Avon UDO 7.21 J1 to increase the number of lots on 2 access points to over 200 lots, where 3 access points required for developments over 200 lots, since it has satisfied all the requirements for waivers under state law and subject to the approved findings of fact.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Having heard a motion and a second, we'll now take a vote.
Kuchenberger,
4.
Zuzen,
4.
Rockabrand,
4.
Reed,
4.
Kaufman,
4.
Ransberg,
4. Motion carries and MAP 2604 is approved. We now moved on to,
Waiver,
I'm sorry,
waiver A.
waiver A is approved. Thank you. We now move on to preliminary approval of major subdivision plan, MAP 2604.
I move that we approve MAP 26-04 Fairwood, Section 5, a request to subdivide 18.1 acres into 9 lots and 2 blocks, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, since it has satisfied all the requirements for preliminary approval of a major plat under state law and subject to the approved findings of fact.
Having heard a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Having had a motion and a second, we'll now take a vote.
Reed,
4.
Rockabrand,
4.
Zuzen,
4.
Guckenberger,
4.
Ransberg,
4.
Kaufman.
4.
Motion carries and MAP 2604 is approved.
Thank you for your time.
We now move on to DPR 2609.
Thank you, President Ransberg, members of the commission. DPR 2609 is a development plan review request to provide for construction of a roughly 15,000 square foot indoor recreation building, along with 4 waiver requests, 1 of design standards. Sorry, that should say 1 of development standards and 3 of design standards. The property is located at 313 Shiloh Crossing Drive. It's part of a platted lot in Shiloh Crossing. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. A little under ½ acre, zone C2, and it is within the Ronald Reagan Corridor Overlay District. Shiloh Crossing was originally platted under jurisdiction of the county. And in 2005, a plat amendment was filed with the town to create lots 14B and C out of existing lot 14. The subject site we're talking about today is a part of lot 14C. In 2006, there was a variance granted by the BZA to allow for construction of 2 buildings on 1 lot. And then in 2007, the commission approved a development plan review to allow construction of 2 multi-tenant condominium buildings on lot 14C. Only 1 was built. So the subject site is a remainder parcel, part of lot 14C, that was created by the Henderson County Assessor when the south building that was constructed and the common area around it was created through what's called the horizontal property regime, which is essentially another name for a condominium agreement. When that was recorded with the assessor in 2008, they ended up with this remainder parcel. I'm just going to show you, just to look at the overall here. This is the site outlined in blue. You have US 36 down here at the bottom of the page, Ronald Reagan Parkway to the east. The property can be accessed through the movie theater, through this common area here. There's a few different ways it can be accessed. Its most direct access is here off Shiloh Crossing Drive. So this entryway, which is now a common area coming down here, as well as this multi-unit building that exists, those, and then the subject site are all part of lot 14C. So when this building was built and then split into a condominium arrangement for individual ownership of the tenant spaces, those parcels were created. This common area that has the parking and access from Shiloh Crossing Drive was created. And then the subject site was basically a remainder portion that was also at that time intended to have a similar building. And there is actually a foundation out there where that building was started, but for some reason never completed. So this is a look at the plat where lot 14 was replatted. So this is lot 14B down here where Carpenter Realtors is. And then the remainder of this is all of lot 14C. And then the building that was built here, the multi-tenant building, that has now new parcels created when it was built and turned into a condominium arrangement. And then there's the common area here. And this is basically the general location of the subject site. This is a look at the property facing east. So if you imagine you turned east off of Shiloh Crossing Drive and drove straight east, this is where you would run into the property. You can see the movie theater building in the background. And then here's the parking to the south that was created when the building to the south was created. Now this is facing south across the property. And here's the parts of the foundation that you can see both in the foreground and the background. And there's the multi-tenant building that was built to the south. Now facing north from that parking lot in front of the multi-tenant building. Again, you see the parts of the foundation there. We're facing north to the, what I would call probably excess parking area west of the movie theater that doesn't seem to get used much, if at all, these days. And then, of course, you have a residential subdivision beyond that, further north. And then finally, looking back west, so this is from the movie theater parking lot, looking west across the site back towards Shiloh Crossing Drive. This is the site plan. So north is at the top. So again, the entry in from Shiloh Crossing Drive would be here, coming east. The black line is the outline of the property itself. So you can see the proposed building footprint in gray covers most of the property. And that's going to be in part, well, certainly related to the waiver request that we're going to discuss. So the property would use either some of this parking to the south and potentially parking to the east, or even theoretically to the north. The petitioner did submit a recorded easement agreement that appears to be in place from decades ago between all of lot 14, which is all of this area here, and I believe it's lot 1 that the movie theater sits on. And from our reading of that easement, it does allow for shared use of any of the parking areas and drive aisles. So although there would be no actual dedicated parking on the petitioner's property itself, there is more than enough there's more than enough parking spaces when you look at the amount that are on the movie theater property compared to what would be required for the movie theater. There's an excess of hundreds of parking spaces. So we have no concern from that standpoint that there would not be enough parking to meet the UDO requirements. This is a look at the landscape plan. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we go through the waiver request related to foundation plantings, but you can see foundation plantings here to the east and to the north, and then some along here to the west as well. Where we don't see any at all is along the south, where there's only a 5-foot setback between the property line, or between the property line and the building footprint. And that's where the ordinance would require there to be a 5-foot planting strip in addition to the pedestrian walkway separating the building from the parking area. So that's a waiver request. There should be foundation plantings in this area as well in order to meet the ordinance. These are the proposed building elevations, starting with the west facade that would be visible when entering the property from Shiloh Crossing Drive. I will say this looks like a very flat facade, but this center portion of the facade actually would be set back. So it in reality would look a little different. If you look at the footprint here, there is this significant recess in the facade there. So a perspective rendering, which hasn't been provided, but would kind of give you a better idea of that not being flat all the way across. There's the east facade that would face toward Ronald Reagan Parkway, although the property is significantly set back from Ronald Reagan, but that would be facing the movie theater parking lot and Ronald Reagan Parkway. There's the north facade that would face the other part of the movie theater parking lot, as well as the neighborhood then to the north. And then there's the south facade that would face the multi-tenant building that was constructed on part of this lot about almost 20 years ago. So again, it's a request for approval of development plan review for approximately 15,000 square foot building with 1 waiver of development standards and 3 waivers of design standards. So we'll talk about the waivers, which you'll have to act on before you could act on the development plan review. starting with waiver A, a waiver of development standards of UDO 6.5A to waive the foundation planning requirement adjacent to the entire south facade and part of the west facade where a 5-foot wide landscape area is required around the perimeter, excluding access points to the building. So again, there's the landscape plan. And again, the parts we're talking about would be all along the south facade here, and then part of the west facade where they're not meeting the foundation planning requirement there. So for a development standards waiver, you have 5 required findings, which are out well, both the petitioner's response as well as staff comment are outlined in more detail in your staff report, but I'm going to go through these. The first required finding being that it not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. Staff is not especially concerned that the lack of landscaping would cause a threat to public health or safety or welfare. Finding 2, that it's harmonious with the purpose and intent of the zoning district in which the property is located. Petitioner had indicated that it will provide more landscaping than some of the other buildings within the Shiloh Crossing development. Now, while that's true, it should be remembered that many of those buildings were built under county jurisdiction, under a different ordinance requirement. And the finding requirement is not that it be harmonious with what's surrounding it, but with the intent and purpose of the zoning district. The intent of the district being zone C2, the requirement for commercial districts is to provide that foundation planning area to soften the appearance of the building. And so we don't believe that the purpose and intent of the district would be that the proposal would be harmonious with that. That it enhance the overall development plan, abutting streetscapes, neighborhoods, and surrounding area. Again, for similar reasons, we don't find that placing the building 5 feet from the curb of the parking area with nothing to kind of buffer the building, we don't find that finding would be met. That the proposal not produce a site design that is impractical or detracts from the appearance of the proposed development of the surrounding area. We think it would conflict with the abutting property to the south, which did manage to meet the ordinance requirement. I'll go back to that picture. You can see they do have plantings all around the front of the building. Those do continue around all 4 sides of the building. So we don't think that it would be complementary to the surrounding area in that regard. And then the 5th finding, that it provides improved site design characteristics such as increased pedestrian connections, enhanced landscaping, tree preservation, or public art. The proposal, we don't find that it overall does provide enhanced landscaping. Pedestrian connection, we're going to talk about with one of the other waivers, but we don't see anything that has been done to mitigate this request to not have the foundation plantings. It appears to be more just a desire to fit a larger building footprint on the site than what the ordinance would allow. So for those reasons, we have concerns about findings 2 through 5 being met, and so we would not recommend approval of that waiver. Waiver B, getting into the design standards requests, a request to waive the requirement for building projections or recesses for facades greater than 100 feet in length. So what is required on any facade over 100 feet in length, which in this case would be the north and south ends of the building, the longer sides of it, is that you have a minimum 3 foot deep and at least 20 foot wide projection. So essentially, although this reveal feature has been added, it will still be, and the petitioner can verify that, but from the drawings we've received, I think they've indicated that it'll have a minor bit of depth change from the rest of the facade, but it would be nowhere near the 3 feet that is required, and the 20 foot width. So basically, what you need to have is the building, I guess if I go back to the site plan, maybe it's a little easier to point out on there. So what would be required by the ordinance is instead of having this flat facade all the way across, but for the little notched out building entrance, that you'd have a 3 foot deep, and this may be 3 feet deep, but that you'd have a 3 foot deep and 20 foot wide, either recess, so a cutout in the facade, which gives it a more textured appearance, or it could be a 3 foot projection that punches out from the rest of the building, but it would have to have a 20 foot width. So where that's required would be on the south facade as well as on the north facade. So when we look at the required findings for a design standards waiver, the first one's quite similar to the development standards, but it's that it not be detrimental to public health, safety, or general welfare, or injurious to adjacent or nearby property. So we do, because the facades would be visible from the adjacent commercial building to the south, which does comply with this standard, as well as from the residential neighborhood to the north. And considering that, this is a significant, so this building is 48 feet high at its peak, which is certainly allowable in C2. I believe the maximum building height is 65 feet. But it is a fairly tall building. And so to not have that articulation, we think kind of exacerbates the effect by, between not having the articulation and being a building that's quite a bit taller than a typical single-story retail building. So we believe that would have a detrimental impact, both to the public that would view it as well as to adjacent properties. Second required finding, that the alternative that they've proposed not contradict the intent and design, the intent of the design standards or the purpose of the subdivision regulations. And the petitioner in their response, cites that it would follow similar forms established within the development, which again, you will see buildings in Shiloh Crossing that do not meet our architectural standards for articulation. But again, most of those buildings were built under a different ordinance, under the county jurisdiction. It is important, I think, to note that the building to the south, which was part of the same original development, does meet those standards. Third finding, that the proposed alternative is due to conditions specific to the property and the proposed development and not applicable generally to other properties. The petitioner's response was that the site is small with longer proportions in the east-west direction, and the otherwise required facade setbacks would make use of the parcel difficult to develop into a usable floor plan. And our opinion is that it is, while it's true that the site is limited in size, we believe that a building footprint similar to or even larger than the existing building in the south could be constructed without waiving the building articulation requirement. So we don't find necessarily that it's a condition specific to the property. It's more a condition specific to what the petitioner wants to develop on that limited site. And then finally, you're required to find that the proposed alternative enhances the proposed development and the surrounding area. The petitioner cites that this is currently a failed/abandoned site, and the improvements will make the parcel safe and improve access and beautify the area. Well, that, I guess you get down to a matter of opinion, is something better than nothing. Certainly we would like to see the site improve, but we don't know that the specific proposal, as far as the architecture, would enhance the area in a manner that is intended by the ordinance if they were to meet the articulation requirements for the facade. So we do find that we don't believe that any of the four findings would be met for waiver B, so we would recommend denial of that waiver. Moving on to waiver C, this is a waiver of 7.10E to allow for only one roof feature when two listed features are required. So the UDO requires at least 2 of 5 roof features to be included on all buildings. 3 of those actually most of the time relate to pitched roofs. So typically what we see on a flat roof building, which is essentially what this is, there's a little bit of a slope on the building, but it's not a pitched roof. So what we typically see are the two options that are chosen. One is that the roof be constructed of an energy efficient material in order to reduce the heat island effect. In other words, that instead of like a black rubber membrane roof, they would have a light colored roof that would reflect sunlight, that would prevent some of the heating effects that you get in an urbanized area when you have so much asphalt and dark rooftops. So we typically see that roof feature selected on a flat roof, which the petitioner has proposed. And then the second one then is typically that they provide a parapet with a three-dimensional cornice treatment that conceals flat roofs and rooftop equipment from public view. They have not proposed that, so that's the need for the waiver. So I've got the building facades here. So basically what we'd be talking about is up here at the edge of the roof, this would be a three-dimensional cornice that would protrude out. You'd see it stick out off either, all the corners. And you don't see that on this design. That's just an example. That obviously they wouldn't have to do something this detailed, but that was just something I pulled off the internet thanks to O'Connor Contracting. Make sure I attribute credit there. But that's just an example of a three-dimensional cornice that projects out off the roof. Same findings are required as for the previous waiver B that we discussed. And I'm not going to run through every one of these, but we do think that overall having that type of three-dimensional cornice would improve the aesthetic appearance of the building and kind of soften the fact that it's a kind of massive, bulky facade. And so we think that would have a negative impact on the public to not include that it would contradict the intent of the design standards, that doing what they're proposing is not something is not due to a condition specific to the property, and that what they're proposing doesn't enhance the development in the surrounding area. So we are recommending denial of waiver C because we don't believe that any of the four findings are met. Finally, waiver D is a waiver of design standards of UDO 7.19 to waive the requirement to integrate an interior and exterior pedestrian network. So again, taking a look at the site here outlined in turquoise, getting access from Shiloh Crossing Drive. I didn't have the site plan there. So what they are proposing, just going back to the site plan here, is that they would have a walkway in front of the building, so to speak, if you think about the practical front of the building where the public entrance is here along the south facade. So they would have walkway there and apparently around the east to accommodate people parking over here so they could get to the building. What staff has determined would be required by UDO 7.19 is that they would make a connection out to the nearest public street, which would be Shiloh Crossing Drive, which does have sidewalk along it, so that pedestrians, whether customers or employees, would have a safer path to access the site. So what we will require is that a walkway be constructed from the Shiloh Crossing Drive right away through this common area with a crosswalk to connect over to the site to provide safe access. Just in a brief discussion with the petitioner prior to tonight's hearing, I believe they indicated that they want to work on that issue and will agree to that. But if, in case that's not the case, and because the waiver has been requested, I want to let you know that we don't believe that any of the findings would be met, that it would be detrimental to public safety to not provide a safe pedestrian connection to the property, that it would contradict the intent of the design standards and subdivision regulations, that the alternative of not doing it isn't due to a condition specific to the property, and that not doing it would not enhance the development or the surrounding area. So for those reasons, we believe none of those findings have been met, and we would recommend denial of that waiver. So overall, we're concerned that the requested waivers are due to a desire to develop a building footprint that's larger than what the site can develop or can accommodate. And it's our opinion that looking at waivers A through C, the pedestrian waiver D doesn't really tie into the appearance of the building, but looking at waivers A through C, we think it would result in a building giving the appearance of a single large dominant building mass, which is in contradiction to UDO 7.10C, which indicates that such a design must be avoided in new buildings. And although that's a little bit subjective to say what's a single large dominant building mass, so we don't believe that they would need to request a waiver of that requirement. We think the other architectural standards are intended to result in a building design that doesn't constitute a single large building mass. So when we look back at the building elevations, and again, understanding there's a notch in the center of this west facade, so that actually would have the type of relief that the ordinance requests. But looking especially, let me go back to where we've got all four, to the south facade, where there would be no foundation plantings here, and then you've got a 48-foot tall building with no articulation. Despite the fact that, you know, this reveal and a color change has been added, which adds a little bit of a perception of depth, it doesn't go anywhere, we believe, near to what the ordinance requires. And so for those reasons, we believe that the spirit of the ordinance and the intent of the ordinance would not be met. And we think that waivers A through C demonstrate that. And so we don't support any of those waivers. We think a potential solution would be if they need this size of building footprint to do what they want to do on the inside of it, that perhaps they could acquire some additional land, since we do know, looking back, well, just even at this picture, if you've been to the movie theater, I think it's pretty clear everybody parks out front. Maybe a few cars park over here, but this isn't really used or needed. And again, the movie theater has several hundred parking spaces more than what is required. Now, obviously, that's private property. They're under no obligation to come to any agreement to other than agreements that have already been made to allow for shared parking. They're not under any obligation to sell part of their property. But that would be a potential solution if the petitioner needs to build as large of a building as they're proposing, to potentially, you know, acquire a strip of land here that would allow them to build the building size they want and still be able to push it back another 5 feet to meet the foundation planning requirement here on the south, as well as they need another 6 feet potentially to provide the 3 feet of projection or recess on both the north and south ends. So, you know, you're really talking about a matter of potentially 11 feet of space that they would need to be able to both design the building and provide the landscaping that the ordinance requires. So again, we are recommending we are recommending denial of each of the waiver requests. And you would need to approve all of the waiver requests in order to approve the DPR as proposed. But if you do approve all 4 waiver requests, then at that time, we would need to recommend approval of the DPR, because the other elements of the development plan, we believe, do meet the ordinance. But again, you have to deal with those 4 waiver requests first. But if you were to approve all 4 of those, then we would recommend approval of the DPR subject to these 3 conditions, which are the pretty standard conditions we request. But if you deny any of the waivers, then we would recommend denial of the DPR as well at that point. And with that, I would be happy to answer any and all questions the commission may have.
First of all, thank you for that excellent presentation, and I think you need a cookie.
I mean, I have a question on the pedestrian traffic, because it's the first time seeing shared parking around a building with, it looks like the development would be, take up the entirety of the lot the way it's proposed. So it's really going to utilize the shared parking. If it utilizes the shared parking to the east, when I was getting into pedestrian traffic, how would, I mean, I would expect if this was one property development, there'd be pedestrian marked lanes of where they would walk. We'd have some islands. But now you got an existing lot that has parking spaces. How do we ensure pedestrian traffic in shared parking?
So I'd say that's a good question. If this, oh, thank you. So if this were new development being proposed, as far as the parking areas, excuse me, the ordinance wouldn't require crosswalks through every aisle of the parking lot. There may be, depending on if there were, let's say, for example, if there were another street to the east, there may be a requirement that a walkway come through from that street to the east to connect to the building, which would be mostly intended for pedestrian traffic from the street, assuming there was a street right here, just for example's sake. But that would also be able to be used, obviously, by people in the parking lot. But there's not necessarily a requirement that new parking lots have crosswalks all the way through the parking lot. It just so happens that it often coincides with a walkway that's coming in from a street. So it wouldn't really necessarily be different in this case. I mean, obviously, going back to the site plan, you can see that they are providing the required pedestrian walkway area adjacent to the building, which does meet the requirement of the UDO. And then, of course, you have this crosshatched area for the required ADA spaces. But there's not a requirement like that there'd be a crosswalk from these parking spaces over here that people could use. So I don't really think there would be anything additional that would be required as far as, people walking over from the movie theater parking lot. They would just walk up onto the site here, just similar to how they would walk through the movie theater parking lot to the movie theater.
Okay.
I have a question about the sidewalk too. The building to the west, is there already a sidewalk there? So they'd be connecting to that sidewalk?
No.
Can you go back to?
Yeah, let's see if we can find that one. Oh, that's not, okay, I got it back here. We're almost there.
I'm confused.
There was.
Okay, so you're talking about the area, I believe, where the arrows are pointing?
Two arrows, is there? any-
Yeah, no, there's no walkway coming in there. That would need to be constructed on the common area, which we believe.
That's what you're proposing.
Oh,
Right, we don't see any reason that couldn't be done because the common area serves all of these properties.
so why did the building to the west, the building to the south, why weren't they held?
Oh, good question.
To that.
So when this building was constructed in 2008, we were operating under the old zoning ordinance and it did not have the requirement to integrate an interior and exterior pedestrian network. So it wasn't a requirement at that time. So it wasn't imposed and they could have chosen to do it, but it wasn't a requirement that the town could impose.
Okay, and then the next building over, the west building, it seems like a lot of times when we see.
This one?
Yeah, you see a development, they'll have the sidewalk at the edge of their property and it kind of seems like that's the edge of their property.
Yeah, so there's a sidewalk along Shiloh Crossing Drive here.
Okay.
There's no, are you saying like?
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't have been required to build sidewalk out there either under the old zoning ordinance.
So they were under the old as well.
Correct.
Couple of questions. That existing building to the west, the big square,
Yep.
what is that?
I believe,
It's a church.
It's a church?
It's a church, yes.
yeah, I believe that was originally constructed as or at least in the past was a Christian bookstore.
Was the old Christian bookstore.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, okay, so my concern is all this parking and an agreement that is out there or isn't out there who's going to maintain it, first of all? Because all these excess parking lots like Target and Walmart have potholes in them and need to be repaired. So who's going to end up doing that? Probably more importantly, to the south of the building is a parking area that is being used currently by the tenants in that building, right?
Correct.
So I guess I'd like to see that agreement, because based on this proposed project, you're going to bring in a lot of traffic and a lot of people, and they're going to take up the parking spaces for the people that want to use the office building, for one. Two, this reminds me over here at Austin Lakes, where the Mosaic apartments were built, because that was approved by the county, and they're 4-story apartments, and those people that live there now look out and look up and see a 4-story building. Well, this is going to be 60 or 48 feet high versus a maximum of 65. So that's an issue, and I guess and you said it earlier, they're building a building bigger than the site can handle, but they're doing it because they have this agreement that they can use everybody else's parking to their benefit. Is that probably accurate?
So I think yeah, I mean, I recall there was a question at the beginning of that about who would maintain parking areas, and that would be incumbent upon the deeded property owner to maintain their portions. Staff's analysis of whether they met UDO table 6.3, which would require 38 parking spaces for the proposed building size for indoor recreation use. Our analysis was based on counting the number of spaces in the movie theater parking lot and finding that there were several hundred more than what is required for the movie theater use, as well as this building. So, knowing that there's that great excess of parking and having that access easement submitted to us, which should be pointed out, the UDO requires shared parking if there's a recorded easement. That's how we determine that there's more than enough parking here. But if there was an issue with maintenance of that, the town is able to take enforcement action, which we've done with some of the parking lots in town to try to work with property owners to get them to maintain that.
But it's shared parking, and who would they go after? Who legally owns that land, those parking areas?
I don't have the specific owner what is it? Spirit Master Funding.
Okay, my point is, our petitioner does not own that, right?
Correct.
So we can go after the owner of the property who has nothing to do with the petitioner's project, and he'll have to go and make these improvements to the benefit of the petitioner. That doesn't sound right. That's not a good neighbor.
So
But it's not about that. There's a declaration recorded in 1996 by the developer that said, you, the people who own the theater, and you people who own this other property, which is the one we're looking at, you're going to allow cross parking, and you're going to be jointly responsible for the care and maintenance of this forever. And you know who made them do that? It wasn't the town, because we didn't exist. It was their banks. 2 different mortgage companies signed the declaration. I got the declaration right here. You can see it. But these, down where Target was and the bookstore at the other end of town, they have the same kind of agreement there, and they have like 8 different people who can cross park. But these people, the petitioner has a contractual right to use that parking lot, which we can't take away from them.
I'm not trying, I just want to make certain we have the.
So does that include the
It's
church
not about
lot?
being a friendly neighbor. This has been set in stone since 1996.
So what all is considered shared? Does it include the church, the 8 blocks below, and how big is that area? And the movie theater? Or is it just those?
I think it speaks, the movie theater property is property A, and then everything in that square there you see the church and the subject property and the condominiums is the other block. And so there, it was a two-party agreement at that time, forced upon by their banks because, again, in those days where there was nothing there, the banks wanted to make sure there was always going to be adequate parking so the land could develop properly.
So
In the early days of the town, this was very common because there was nothing there. I mean, and then the outlaws were going to be sold, and all those, every place you see a big box store, and then you see all the restaurants along 36, those all have cross parking agreements. This is the normal thing. And so the petitioner has the right to use the parking lot east and north. And with all due respect to the theater, it matters. I mean, it's recorded in 1996. We recorded so everybody knows, but the fact that they didn't know about it doesn't mean it's not enforceable.
Right.
And we have, it's a private agreement. We have no role in that whole situation. But to Greg's point, somebody has to maintain, and the maintenance issues are addressed right in the agreement. Either party can do the maintenance and bill the other one. That's what the agreement says.
So they're supposed to be sharing that maintenance fee. And
Yes,
that may or may
there are
not be
mechanisms in the agreement to say, look, let's fix this, or I'll just fix it and send you a bill.
But the terms of that agreement are irrelevant to us.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
you
No, that
know,
was
if they
just- that
have,
was more
if
of
there's an issue with potholes and that kind of stuff, I mean, we can do an
I
enforcement
agree.
agreement, but
It's a DPR, so we just need to see as a compliant. They needed to show us the shared parking agreement so they could demonstrate to staff and to you that they can provide adequate parking. And right then, our inquiry should end right there, in my opinion.
So then I'm going to ask about that because I'm going to go back to it. I mean, I think the parking is there and that's not the issue here. You know, I'm still thinking about pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, and
And it's, I'm looking at an aerial photo that's available now, and the parking spaces to the north aren't really, I don't see any markings there, so they probably have faded well over time. The ones in front of the theater are there, but they're fading, and it's hard to tell what kind of lighting's there. So what can the town do to ensure that this is a safe environment? I'll ask the petitioner that question when they present too. Because if you're going to have people parking all around that.
No, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked because we used to have this problem at Kroger, you might remember, right over here.
Yeah.
And when the town approves a DPR and it shows pavement markings that include parking spaces and arrows and stop bars, those have to be maintained. That's part of the approval. And we have done code enforcement against parking lot owners in the past saying, you have an approved parking lot with all these features. And if they fade, those features are gone. You have to fix them. And we had kind of a battle with whoever owns the Kroger parking lot more recently. That there's been plenty of them though, and that's what we can do.
So we're talking about the entity that we just discussed would be the one that the town would have to go after. to
Whoever the
enforce.
owner of the parking lot is,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
So I had one more question for the town, or for our planners. Is this outside of the region where you need to have specific material construction and glazing and things like that for the property?
No, yes and no. It's not within the US 36 overlay where we see, most of our commercial buildings, just because it's so far set back.
Okay.
It's within the Ronald Reagan corridor overlay, but there's not a lot in the Ronald Reagan corridor overlay that's specific to this property because a lot of those standards deal with landscaping along Ronald Reagan, access to Ronald Reagan, those type of things. One thing that is relevant is just the requirement that the trash enclosure be designed of materials similar or complementary to the building, which they've revised to make sure they meet that requirement. It's outside, like I said, it's just outside of the US 36 overlay, which extends a quarter mile.
I have all these memorized.
Quarter
now.
mile. Sorry. So a quarter mile from US 36. And as I recall, that line gets somewhere right up. It's very close, but they're outside the 36 overlay. So they don't have to deal with those standards, but we do have still commercial architecture standards in Chapter 7, Article 10. And so they do need to comply with those. So they did have to make some, they did actually make some revisions to the elevations after TAC review in order to make sure that they were meeting those requirements.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned earlier that petitioner has indicated that they would be willing to work to meet the requirements or to not ask for waiver D. So is there going to be a withdrawal of the request for waiver D, or you do want to keep it in place?
That would be a question to address to the petitioner.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions for staff? If not, we'll have the petitioner come forward.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Joseph Lisi with Progress Studio. Our address is 220 College Avenue in Indianapolis, and I'm the architect on the project. With me here tonight are two of the four owners of the Nirvana Sports project that we are working on. To answer the question on, and kind of go backwards on the waiver. So waiver D, the public connection to the public way. The owners had expressed an interest in working with the HOA on establishing that connection. So however that gets handled, it may relate to these other three waivers as well, as far as like what are going to be the next steps. If it's a conditional approval or if it's a continuance, I can, turn the floor back over to you after I've let the owners speak and then go from there. So that would be waiver D. Waiver C of the two roof features, we would like to work with the planning staff on eliminating that waiver as well with some design effort to achieve that one. So our intent is to have that one drop off as well. The others, as far as the waiver B, the articulation, which may also loosely tie in with waiver A, which is the foundation planting. We would need a little bit of time to work that into ideally have those two waivers drop off in full, depending on our efforts with working with the owners as well as finding that comfort level. I don't know if I can promise that it would drop off fully or if we would still need to hold on to those waivers, but perhaps improve upon them so that we're not asking for the full boat, but to work with not only ourselves, but planning staff and possibly represent those two. So right now, those are probably the open to items that are going to be the more difficult things, whether it's building position in combination with facade offsets. Those are two that probably will need a little bit more work and effort. I'll turn the floor over to the owners and let them introduce themselves as well.
So before you go, so are you formally requesting withdrawal of waiver C and D?
I will let them speak first and then I can respond to that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Pratik Parikh. I'm from 6151 Palomar Circle, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46234. I'll let my partner speak and then I'll go.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Parag Pandya. I'm from 2116 Banbury Place, Avon, Indiana, 46123.
So what might seem like a little of a story, but this all started 3 years ago when we started, we all have little kids, and to take them to swimming, to basketball, to soccer practice, it's a chore. And I'm sure all of you went through that as well. So we started looking for a land. We looked at Zionsville, Whitestown, Plainfield, Brownsburg, all of the places. We started with looking at what is each of the cities, what is their slogan, right? Zionsville's for all the right reasons. Whitestown's is bridge the past, gateway to future, to the future. Brownsburg is moving community on the move. Plainfield is anything but plain. And then we came to Avon, and two of the partners are from Avon. One had to travel today, so he couldn't make it. Other is on the YouTube call, and we're extremely invested into this. And when we look at Avon's slogan, it's "Come and grow with us" in Avon. Safe, vibrant community for active families and thriving businesses, where you live, work, and play. And then we look at park, recreation, and sports. So we all looked at almost 20, 30 sites, and we decided on this site for various reasons. One, you rightly pointed out, we were lucky enough to find a plot where there was a cross easement. And we do pay HOA for that. We just made our payment 6 months ago. And prior to that, before taking, we made sure that the prior owner had paid their dues as well. So now coming to why are we building this? It is to bring community together. Obviously, we are going to make a business out of it. We are not doing it for loss. We are going to make money. That's not a problem. But we have a pain point in the west side of the community where people have to travel 45, 50 miles to get to a swimming place, or have to go on the north side to rent a basketball facility. So we are solving that pain. That's why we came about and built this. So yes, we're trying to do more with less, but I guess that's the small business motto, right? I think you have to start somewhere. You have to build a community. You have to go and get into the community. You build the culture there, and then you grow and go for bigger projects. But that's where we are coming from, and genuinely we want to be better for the community, and that's why we are doing this. And we first felt the pain of running around, and a lot of times in that process, what we don't realize is there is a number of studies out there where parents are running around, and at the end of the day, unknowingly, they will hate their kids because they have to do it for them, right? They want to do it, or they're so passionate about a given sport, they will drag the kids along with them, right? So all of those things is what we are really genuinely working towards a concept that brings community together, parents and kids together. While kids are doing one activity, parents can also enjoy the other activity. That's why all of these waivers are there. It's not selfishly just for us. It is for the community as well. And you look at it right now. When we started this project, there was no pickler around. There was no swimming pool things around. It has taken us almost 6 months already to design it, and before that, 2 years to find a land where we can actually build our concept together. So I will just leave it at that, but we are really trying to do something where we grow with the community and not something just selfishly doing it for the reason of doing it. I don't know if you want to say anything.
And just to add to what Prateek said, this site we are willing to work. Obviously, me being from Avon, I've been here since like almost 2006. We want to work, but as a first-time business owner, this was the most optimistic thing for us. We found a nice architect, which is Joseph, and we want to work with you guys to bring this business into reality. And we are willing to work within reasonable capacity of ours to whatever this may entail, because not knowing the ins and outs of, again, not being from the business community, we just want to thank Paul and Linda too, for their guidance, because that's where everything started. So I'm not here to argue or anything. We just want to make this thing work, which it can be the win-win situation for both the town of Avon and for us too.
So let me ask you this. If I understand, it looks like waivers C and D are probably going to be withdrawn, and you're willing to work with the town with regards to the concerns of waivers A and B. So is this something that you want to come back to us with as opposed to going forward this evening? So that you can come back to us with a cleaner presentation?
C and D, C is something that is in our control, and I think when we read the proposed arrangement that was suggested by Paul, we had a conversation over the weekend with Joe. It was Friday, but Friday was June 19th, so we couldn't communicate that in time. So we said, let's go with it. I think it's reasonable. It's extra effort, but it's fine. Let's go with it. We'll find something that is cost effective, quoted, and finished. So that way we make it look good. D is sidewalk network. We feel like it's important. They're pointing out the right thing. We have to obviously put a request into our HOA. We are willing to go through the whole process of making sure to push it forward continuously and provide all the evidence if required of that process. And
My question is, it sounds like C and D are going to go away as far as the waivers.
Correct.
We're still dealing with A and B, and it sounds like there's a desire on your part to work with the town
correct.
to help accommodate those, but you are not there yet. So my question is, do you want to continue this so that you can work with your architect and work with staff and come back with an amended or an altered version of waivers A and B, so that, I mean, is that something that would be easier for you? I mean, I'm thinking right now, we're not, thank you for withdrawing C and D, first of all. We always appreciate petitioners who work with us and understand our vision for the town as well. So we are very appreciative of that. But as far as A and B, just hearing that you're willing to work with us is kind of nebulous and abstract, and it would be easier, at least for me, I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but it'd be easier for me if I could see what your idea of working with the town actually is.
Yeah, so a few things, there are, if we can get a conditional approval today, it'll be nothing better than that. Because we have to still work with our GCs, and there's slew of activity behind this that will continue to extend our timeline, because we want to break ground sometime August, September, and then get the building ready by next, September 2027. So it will help us keep moving forward. If we now have to come back and extend it for another month, it'll definitely be not, it'll push things away.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
You're trying to keep it the time.
Correct. But we are definitely we are trying to find, because what is happening in the side where we are being asked to move, give that, recess and projection, is that now all of a sudden either we have to cut a one pickleball court out of the equation. There are things that we will have to sacrifice on, which essentially, obviously, sacrifice on the business end, but it's also sacrifice on how we can serve the community. So we're trying to figure out how can we make sure that we are complying, but at the same time, we are also making sure that, people have access to more activity sports.
Okay,
Hopefully I answered your question.
sort of.
Yeah.
May I just say, and I'm talking to the commission here, is we've got 4 waivers that have been recommended for denial. We've had a conversation that they may withdraw 2 of them, and they have further conversation to me, I'd rather just continue the whole thing. You have your conversations, and C and D won't even come back if that's the case, and A and B is modified. And probably just as important for the Regal Theater, it'll give them time to sit down and just have a conversation. I mean, you've been enlightened, and there's documentation, so I want that hurdle to be cleared. So in my opinion, to you guys, is I think they should just ask for a continuance on all 4 waivers.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in, and I like your point. I'm going to ask the commission, maybe get back in process and do public comment first.
You're right.
and
Yeah, we need to-
satisfy
we need to
that,
do
and then we
that.
can
Yeah.
do our conversation.
Thank
And
you.
So I'd say to finish up with the petitioner.
Right. Okay, have a seat. And I know that we have someone here who would like to speak about this, this petition. If you'd like to step forward, sir. And we need your name and address.
Sure. Mike Sandy, 10400 East US 36, Suite 800, Avon, Indiana, 46123. I've never said that before. Basically, I just wanted to come and communicate that as I spoke earlier, we just found out about this agreement. I know it was, I guess, filed in May of 96. I know the theater opened on November 6th, 1995. And I think it was about 7-8 months later when they did that agreement. According to and I apologize because it was very short time for us to turn around, and with the holiday weekend and stuff, and everybody was off on Friday. Nobody at my corporate office knows about this. Nobody with the landlord, Spirit, knew about it. And also the landlord who sold it to Spirit didn't know anything about it. So we're just trying to get our ducks in a row, just trying to make sure we have all of our information. We have maintained the parking lot by ourselves for 31 years. We have done all the snow removal, all the parking lot lights, any kind of maintenance that's been done for 31 years. So, if it's there and we need to honor it, that's fine, but we just need to make sure and have our stuff in a row and have conversations with the other properties, because the other property, the A site or whatever it is, they've been there for years and we've never talked to them about it. So that's all we're looking for, is just a chance to figure out what's going on.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So you were speaking.
Well, we don't we need petition or rebuttal?
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay. So you have a few
Yes,
minutes.
would you care to rebut?
Discuss.
Yeah, I don't believe this is true, because we pay HOA, and we know that the people who we bought it from, they showed us record of paying HOA. So I don't believe it's true that a property is paying and such a large corporation is paying without having their ducks in a row, right? I think we are small business owners and we are just starting off, and we are reading every single line of the contracts. We are making sure we are not making wrong decisions. And if a big corporation with so many people are making wrong decision, then it's because of their willful ignorance. I'll just put it simply. Like, it is their job for which they're getting paid to read their documents, to understand what is in the document, to comply by those documents. And if they're not doing that, then shouldn't come back to the people who actually did their job. In fact, if you might ask your staff, before we bought this property, we went and made sure that we did a geo-testing of the land. We made sure that the declaration was reading correctly. We made sure every single thing was that we should be doing. We did it. We had probably a 60-day worth of conversation with the staff of, should we actually go by this? Is there a problem with this? Can you help us? And that's where Parag called out, Paul and Linda had been very, very helpful throughout the process, and they continue to be very helpful. And that's why we respect their opinion and we take everything seriously. So it is very unfair if all of a sudden somebody wakes up one day and says, oh, I don't know, and I'm paying for this. If you're paying it, you have HOA, you should go and ask, why are you the only ones paying for it?
Thank you. Did you want to speak, sir?
I
I will just add a line because, we just bought this property new, but this agreement has been there with all the other tenants, right? So it's not just us. So again, to the point that if they just realize that this is new to them, which is not believable, that's all. And we didn't only pay HOA this year, beginning of this year, but we closed on the land last year. So we ended up paying some, HOA fees based on the calculations even last year too.
Okay, thank you.
So can I jump in?
Yes.
Go.
And I appreciate the comments, and I'm not going to argue whether somebody should own it or not. Sometimes you just don't know things over a period of time. Companies change, not everything gets communicated. So I don't think that's really germane to what we're talking about, whether they know it or not. I think what Greg brought up is something that we ought to consider, because if we move forward with just 2 waivers, we're either going to approve or deny them. And if we deny them, then you have no recourse but follow our UDO. And based off what I've heard the petitioner, it seems I would recommend to the petitioner that we continue this, you agree to this, so you could work with staff as you indicated, because I don't think conditional approval is an option. It's either we approve or deny the waivers, which would impact the next move. So that would be my recommendation. And I agree with Greg too, that to do the continuance, to allow you time to work with staff to come back with either a modified waiver or there's no waivers, which if that's the case, then your business, which I think would be a great addition to the community. I really like it. And I empathize with you with your story about moving kids around, because I did that for years. So I think it's a good business. We just need to have a good development for the town, because that's what we've been trying to do, is continue to improve the town of Avon with the development.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the business is a great idea. I think if you are able to work the design with the architects and engineers to meet the ordinances, I think the facility will be better received by the community, because it'll work better in the space that you have. I know it's a small space, but if you can make these modifications, essentially, for lack of a better word, demask the building, so it's not this massive building in the middle of a parking lot. I think those changes could really enhance your appeal to the community and actually bring in more people into your community, or into your business. So I think this may be a way for you to win. It's a way for like if we do is 1 month delay enough or whatever, that would be a way to get this moving faster. So.
Did you want to speak?
Yes, I wanted to ask when we would be continuing to, assuming that's what we're going to.
We could
go
do
with
it
the
as soon
date.
as next month.
Okay, perfect.
That's assuming.
Yeah,
they would need documents like in 2 weeks or something to be able to do next month, right?
Good. That's time frame for continuing to next month.
July 27th would be your next.
But when do you need all the design changes?
So typically we need to have those when we're going through the normal routine of the process 3 weeks prior. But, if we can get everything nailed down 2 weeks prior to that date, we should be, since we've already got a staff report published, we should be able to, make any necessary updates.
So July 13th.
If we had everything, minimum of 2 weeks prior.
So if you got up July 10th, then you send out our packet July 17th. And our next meeting.
This is 27th.
27th.
So that's later.
So is that enough time for you all to work through design changes and work with the staff to see if they comply? So that gives you what, 2 weeks?
I believe so. They don't look, or they don't sound too imposing. The one caveat is one of them are outside of our control to some degree with the, contacting the HOA and arranging for the public way connection, but the intent would be there to withdraw that waiver completely. Meanwhile, we'll be working with staff on the building architecture and massing.
So are you agreeable to a continuance?
So we would agree to a continuance in that commitment by having documents July 10th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, since everybody seems to have come to a consensus here, in that case, I'll entertain a motion.
What about Bill or Dave, you got any comments?
No, I agree with what we've been talking about. I definitely think you should go for the continuance because again, there isn't a partial approval or anything like that, so.
Yeah, I fully concur as well. There's too many things that I'd call incomplete at this point. And again, as we stated this evening, we can't run this unfortunately on a conditional stat. We're either in or out, as the old saying goes. So I think it's in your best interest to, hold off based on what staff has suggested one more month.
Thank you.
So can we clarify, is this us voting for a continuance not related to, it's not a request of the petitioner? It's the board doing the continuance?
Well, I think you were asking the petitioner whether they would request a continuance is, I think, what the consensus was. So I think, obviously, if you want to continue it on your own, you can, but I think you're asking the petitioner to request the continuance, and I think they're doing that.
And they can only request one continuance, right?
They're entitled.
They're only
to one.
entitled to one. They can request as many
I
as
see,
they
I see.
like, but if they request one, they're entitled to that automatically.
Okay.
And I think we should grant it. And, I will even say I would support if you find that you need to continue it again. I mean, I would support that because I would want the town to work with you to bring this business in because I think it's a good addition to the community.
I think it's a great
That's my
idea.
position on that. So I'll make a motion to continue DPR 2609 Nirvana Sports to our July 27th, 2026 meeting.
I'll second.
Having heard a motion and a second, we'll now take a vote.
Guggenberger.
4.
Zuzen.
4.
Rockabrand.
4.
Reed. Kaufman.
4.
Ransberg.
4. Motion is carried, and this petition will now be heard on July 27th. And I think we're all looking forward to working with you, and looking forward to seeing this new addition to Avon.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Any other business?
We do not.
Committee reports.
BZA, we heard one case, a special exception for a car wash in 36 overlay, and that was denied.
Redevelopment, in addition to our invoice approvals, we awarded the bid for County Road 525 East improvements. And also a rebate report for the economic development lease rental bond.
Anything from the town?
No.
Okay, if there's nothing else to be heard, we are now adjourned.